Hey guys, quick little video today. I want to talk about the speech that President Obama gave on the George Zimmerman trial and the Trayvon Martin incident. Now, one of the first things I want to say right off the bat, if you haven't watched the entire speech, go watch the whole thing and then reserve judgment for what was said. The reason I say this is because, well, when I first came across the speech, I didn't catch it when it was live, as I think a lot of people didn't catch it when it was live. I basically got it in little snippets and repeats coming out of MSNBC, Fox, NBC, CNN, Headline News, all these places, okay? And they were replaying certain parts of this particular speech, but it's a 17.5-minute long speech. Go check it out. I'm going to put a link below to the speech in its entirety. Now, there are a couple things I want to point out in this speech, mainly because of the fact that the speech was only getting replayed in certain little areas over and over and over again. And it really pushed across a point that I'm not sure was really what the president was going for, necessarily in part of it, because he later came back and qualified what he had said. But basically, about 2 minutes into the speech, he goes into this like 2 or 3 minute kind of little rant, talking about how black people are still discriminated against and how people clutch their purses and lock their doors when a black person walks by and how people get followed in stores. And he goes on and on and on to talk about kind of the typical, stereotypically white things that people do when they see somebody who's black and that kind of stuff. And it was a little ridiculous to me because, well, I'm not saying that racism isn't still alive in this country. I know it is. But anybody with half a brain cannot say that somehow it is worse now than it has ever been. Okay, it's actually better now than it has ever been. And every generation, every new group of kids that grow up, it gets better. Okay, there will always be some sort of racism around, and it may not be, towards black people, maybe towards another group of individuals, But there will always be some sort of racism or bigotry or discrimination against a certain group of people. Unfortunately, it's something we have to deal with as humans. But fortunately, it is getting better in regards to this particular type of discrimination. And so we have to keep that in mind. But the way President Obama kind of played it up at the very beginning of his speech, the part that keeps getting played over and over and over again, well, I think it was irresponsible of him. Just because of the fact that he did not qualify what he was saying about racism actually getting better in this country till about the 16th minute of the speech, while in the first 5 minutes he went on this kind of rant about how, black people are still discriminated against. And again, I'm not saying they're not. What I'm saying is it's a lot better. And he kind of blew it out of proportion. Now, did he do it on purpose? I don't know. But I do feel like that regardless of whether he did it on purpose or not, he is, by his words, instigating a racial divide in this country. And he is. And again, he goes on later to qualify what he said. He goes on later to talk about how, he does realize and does understand that primarily most of the crime in this country is black on black, and that, most of the violence towards black people comes from other black people or from their peers. And so he went on to qualify that, but not before making this grandiose statement right at the beginning of his speech that's getting repeated over and over and over again. And for that, I think it was very irresponsible of him. When you're the president, when you're surrounded by speechwriters, I think you know when something you say is going to get pushed more than some other thing that you've said. I think he, or at least the people who helped him write his speech, should have known that this was going to get pushed in a way that was probably going to help push this racial divide and upset one group of people over another, and maybe even cause incidents in the future. And I think that was very irresponsible of him, because he did then later on go on and qualify what he was saying. So why did he say it in the first place? The other thing I want to talk about is the stand your ground laws. The fact that, 12 minutes into the speech, he starts talking about stand your ground laws and starts talking about how we need to do something about these laws. We need to do something about, he didn't really specifically say any law except the stand your ground laws, but he kind of instigated towards concealed carry laws and that kind of thing by talking about, different types of training and whether people can carry a gun and whether or not they have a duty to retreat and that kind of thing. And this is something, as a gun guy myself, as most of the people who are watching this are gun guys, this is something we need to be very careful of. As I said, a video or two ago, we knew this was going to happen. We knew this case was going to be used to attack gun laws. We need to be careful. We need to talk to our representatives, our congressmen, our senators, our governors, our local sheriffs, anybody who is there to help us, who help defend our rights. We need to talk to these people now, get ahead of this. Okay, don't let it get to that point. We've done that before. Let's get ahead of this now. because he very much was attacking gun laws. He also brought up the point of, if you have any hesitation in your mind that Trayvon Martin didn't have as much right to stand his ground if he truly felt threatened as George Zimmerman had to stand his ground if he felt threatened. I think this was a loaded question because, instantly you're going to kind of hesitate. Well, let me think about the situation. But in all honesty, my opinion, Trayvon Martin had every bit as much right to stand his ground if he truly felt threatened by George Zimmerman, by some guy following him in a car and then getting out of the car and continuing to what he would see as following him. He had every bit as much right to stand his ground as George Zimmerman had to stand his ground once he felt his life was in danger. Period. There should not be any hesitation there. Okay, if you think George Zimmerman had his right to stand his ground because he felt threatened, then you have to say that Trayvon Martin, if he felt threatened, had a right to stand his ground. Now, what they do when they stand their ground, get into a fight, start beating each other, one shoots the other, that's where the law comes in and makes the determination of whether or not they acted justly or unjustly. But they both had the right to stand their ground in a situation where they felt threatened, hands down. There shouldn't be any hesitation there. So basically what this boils down to, guys, is we need to be very careful, okay? President Obama gave a speech, whether intentionally or unintentionally, could be construed as trying to stir the pot when it comes to the racial divide in this country, okay? Again, maybe it wasn't his intention, but it's certainly how it's being portrayed in the media. And I think that was poor judgment on his part or whoever wrote his speech. And the other thing is we have to defend our gun laws. We have to get ahead of this now because it is coming again. It will always be coming at us from one angle or another. So let's get out there. Let's do the legwork. Let's make the phone calls, write letters, send emails, whatever we have to do. Let's defend our rights at all costs.